Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. This episode is brought to you by Addo Aesthetics, the #1 coaching company for aesthetic professionals wanting to step into the role of spa CEO. And today, we're going to keep that money conversation going. A few episodes ago, we had Nicole Cooley on, where she shared the incredible system that she is using to really track and understand cash flow in your business. It has been life-changing for me. If you have not listened to that episode, please go back and do that. But today, I have my dear friend Emily Williams on the show. If you don't know Emily, she is one of the top money mindset coaches out there. And I felt like it was super important to have her on because it's one thing to have a system in place for understanding cash flow, but that system's not going to be complete if you're hanging on to money beliefs or money blocks, right? That's going to be limiting you. So in the episode, Emily gives some really incredible, tangible, and actionable advice on things that you can start doing today, right now, as soon as you finish this episode, to change your money mindset. It's an important work. It's a lifelong work. It's something that we as women need to focus on more and more. So definitely worth a listen. I hope you enjoy. Let's go ahead and play that interview. All right, Emily, welcome to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. I'm so excited to have you on here today.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to bring you on because something that's very, very important to me this year. I mean, it's been important in the past, but especially this year, I want to make sure that female business owners are paying themselves. So often we focus on the revenue, right? Like you have this multi-six-figure company, but when you see behind the scenes, or even 7 figures, there are people that are not paying themselves. And I think that so much of that comes down to these very, very deep blocks around the relationship that we have around money, and specifically that women have around money. So where's the best place to start here? I know that you are an expert in money mindset. I know you've worked with just so many women around this topic. What do you find is kind of the root cause of this?
Yeah. So with any money issue or money block, you want to look at what the actual belief is. And for a lot of women, it's around putting themselves last or not feeling worthy of making a lot of money or feeling like they need to wait to make a lot of money until they pay their team or whoever else. And we can see that kind of feed into other areas of our lives as well. Maybe you're taking care of the kids before you take care of yourself. Maybe everyone else gets new clothes before you do. And so just looking at what the belief system actually is. And so a lot of people don't understand that our beliefs about money are set when we're children based on what society tells us and what our parents either tell us or model for us. So it's really interesting and important to look back at what your parents did tell you. What were you taught? I know for me, when I first started to do this work, I was taught a lot about debt and not wanting to get into debt and why debt was wrong. And that was mostly actually by society. But then I was also taught different rules about relationships and who makes money and who doesn't. My mom didn't work and my dad did. And she was always spending money, but didn't want to tell him she was spending money. So there's little things like that as children, we don't think are a big deal, but we want to look back to see how those beliefs are kind of running the show in our current business and lives as adults.
And some of those, the thing that I think is really interesting, at least in my case, like you don't even realize that you hold those beliefs. They're so deep rooted that you just take them as fact, or you just take them as this is how this is. And when you start to do the personal development work that is required for all entrepreneurs, right? And our spa owners, they start out as estheticians. Typically, they're very nurturing, they're very caregiving, they put everybody before themselves. They want to heal, right, their clients. And it's can be really challenging because so often their clients, they're coming to us, they're telling us everything that's wrong with their skin, every vulnerability, everything they don't like about themselves. So they're really opening up. And it can feel weird to be in this relationship where someone's completely opening up and being vulnerable and said, I'll help you if you give me this amount of money. And there's this conflict there where I really have learned, not in an Instagrammable way, but in a deep understanding of sales is service. If you don't allow someone to invest in themselves and feel that they're worthy of that, they're not going to have the internal transformation. And if you would have said that to me even 4 years ago, I would have thought you were crazy. It takes a lot of work to get to that place where you truly believe that allowing someone the opportunity to invest in themselves is actually an act of self-care and proclaiming to the world, I am worth this. But how do we, I want to just take it back. How do we even figure out what our beliefs are in the first place?
Yeah. So I feel like there's 3 things in what you just said that I want to cover in this episode because it's all so important in that one story. So the first thing that you mentioned is around this piece around worthiness. And a lot of people, especially service providers who have big hearts, believe that they can't get paid for helping people. And that's a belief in itself. So if I help people, I shouldn't be paid. It's wrong to be paid for helping people. So there's this element of like needing to be a saint or somebody, you know, who is running a charity or something. But I always say you're running a business, not a charity. And so that's one of the first things as women that we need to identify. If that's running rampant in our life, it's going to be very hard to sell. And once you do sell, it's going to be hard to raise your prices and just continue to up level. And so if that is something that's coming up, one of the things I love to look at is kind of flipping it and looking at what it is you actually want the money for. What will the money help you do? And when people start to see, okay, so if I make more money, that means that I can hire more teams so that I can be more involved in my kids' lives. Or that means that I'm going to be able to hire a nanny, or I'm going to be able to hire a chef so I can eat more. I can eat better food. They start to see that when they take care of themselves, that's actually more loving for their clients than them leaving themselves until the very end or not paying themselves. So when there's somebody who, using this example, really loves to help people, well, literally the best thing you can do to help your clients is to first help yourself. So your cup is full and you can actually serve them. So that's one of the ways I kind of get around that one.
Yeah. And it's, a coach said to me a long time ago, and I've heard this in a lot of different places, but if you imagine saying or acting the way that you are towards yourself, towards your child, then it's like, that's crazy. The way that we treat ourselves or deprive ourselves or, you would never say to your kid, you're not worthy. You don't deserve that. It's like, no, you are worthy just for being, right? It's one of those things but it's so hard to get back to that place where we truly believe it.
Yeah. And, I'll touch on that in a second. But the other thing to really think about is if you don't charge or you don't pay yourself, what are the repercussions of that? Some people are motivated by fear. Some people are motivated by desire. The repercussions, in my opinion, is that you're going to be burnt out. Your business is not going to be successful. You're actually not going to be able to help more people because there won't be a business. Is that really the outcome that you want? So really looking at the reality of if you continue in this behavior and in this way, what is the result going to be versus what you actually want to create? And I think, to your point, so many people, they just find themselves in this loop. And so for me, I'd recommend first identifying what those beliefs are, but then just focusing on shifting it to the other belief. So the opposite belief. So I always call this flipping the switch. So think about the belief that you want to create. I am worthy. Money comes to me effortlessly. I sell $20,000 packages with ease. That's what you have to reprogram your mind to believe. And it's actually much easier than people think. Number one, get yourself in a room with other people who are charging the amount of money that you want to charge. And that could be a virtual room.
Yeah.
Right? It could be a mastermind. It could be a group. It could be working with a coach. And, I remember at the beginning of my journey, my coach said, she said in a podcast, she said, you can turn your annual salary into your monthly income. And I was like, I don't believe you. And I see you doing it. So if you're doing it, okay, let me just listen for a little bit and see if I can do it too. But the more I started to be around her and other women who were charging that amount of money, the more I saw myself as capable of doing it too. So I got myself in the room, and I also started to flip the switch, which means I would journal out all these new phrases. I would put alarms on my phone that said, I am worthy. I can charge $20,000. I put Post-it notes up around the house. I'd lay in the shower and listen to all these money mantra audios and meditations. So you're literally saturating your mind with this new way of thinking. Because the truth is, the mind can only have one thought at a time. So if you fill it with the positive, it doesn't have as much time to think of the negative. And then you literally just start acting as if you're the person who already has that belief. So when you're on sales calls, for example, you don't say, oh, you know what, I'll give you a deal or I'll lower my price point. You stop yourself from doing that and you say what the real price point actually is. And even if you're getting no's, you're at least starting to speak the truth of what you actually want to charge and what you deserve to charge. And soon enough, things will start to transform if you keep taking that action and reframing your thoughts.
Yeah, I noticed in my own journey, it's very much you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, the rooms that you go in. And when I started investing in myself in these higher level coaching programs, the women in the room were doing things at a bigger level. And it did kind of, well, if they can do it, I can do it, right? Like it is possible. And I feel like that is the first step of just first understanding that there are actually people out there that are doing this,
Yep.
right? There are spa owners that are 8 and 9 figure spa owners, right? Like there are, well, multiple locations if they're in that level, but like it's possible, right? That is something that is possible. And I love the idea of repetition in the journaling. For me, there is something, I am a digital girl, but I have a notebook right here that I'm writing down throughout the day, anything that I need to remember and get it transferred in there because it absorbs in my brain a different way. So it makes sense that if we're changing a belief, we've got to do whatever works to switch our brain to remember, okay, no, this is who we are. This is what we want. This is what we're creating for ourselves.
Totally. It's just rewiring. And the cool thing about all of this is it just comes back to what it is that you want to create. So I have this firm belief and inner knowing that our desires are our truth. And desire, it literally represents more life. And yet so many of us are stifling ourselves and saying, oh no, I can't have the bigger life. I can't charge more. I can't send my kids to this expensive school. I can't, buy the thing. I can't have the organic food. I can't have the help. And we're stifling our dreams. And so what I learned about 8 years ago was that my desires are actually my truth. It's my fears, doubts, and insecurities that are holding me back. And when you shift that literally changes everything. Because as well as I do, so many of our clients make themselves wrong for what it is that they actually want, or they're so out of alignment, or they're just not in tune with their desires that they're just operating with all these rules and false beliefs, and they're not connected to what they're actually creating or the life that they're living.
So what do you say to that woman? Because I feel like there's a lot in spa that I ask them, what do you want? And that's the hardest question for anybody to answer. How much do you want to work? How much do you want to pay yourself? What do you want to spend your time doing? I don't know.
Yep. Well, first of all, I would say that's complete BS because you're just not allowing yourself to admit it, right? Or you're not letting yourself have the space to go deeper with it. But I would start with the people you admire. So I learned very early on that I was jealous of so many people in the coaching space, but I learned I could use that for good. I could use that for inspiration. So is there someone out there like you, Daniela? You built an amazing business. Do they admire something about you, about how much you work or about how little you work? Do they admire what you've built? Like, who are the people who you're looking, when you look through Instagram, it really triggers or activates something in you? And what is it about them that activates something? Is it them taking time to go on vacation? Is it their website? Is it how much they pay themselves or how much they charge? There are little clues every single day if we're willing to pay attention to it. And then, like your journal right there, just take some notes. When somebody triggers or activates you, that's your intuition telling you that there's something there. And yet so often people are taught to repress their jealousy, to not pay attention to those so-called negative emotions. But our emotions are telling us stuff every single day. And most of the time it's about what it is that we want or don't want.
I love that. That's like such a tangible way to just get started and feel like you're taking action to figure out what it is that you want. What triggers you? What do you see that, like, even if you initially have the feeling that could never be me, but even if you say that could never be me, that shows,
yeah,
I actually want that.
Right. And there's a limiting belief there. So there's something we can work with. Yeah. And so it's literally about curiosity and being the observer of yourself. And it's the same thing with your money beliefs. You can be the observer of yourself having these thoughts. And I know that that can be a little bit esoteric in terms of, is this really tangible? But for me, I like to think about, like, my mind is almost like a helmet, and I can take it off and I can look at it and observe it. And I can see what the thoughts are that are going through my mind. And I can decide whether I choose to believe that or not. And so as you're doing this money work, you have to decide that you are not your mind. And just because your mind has been programmed in a certain way, that's not the forever way of thinking. And it's not the way of thinking that's going to get you the results you want to get. So really take a look at the people who have what you want. How are they thinking? How are they showing up? What action are they taking? And really start to just be curious about your own mindset and be the observer and not be attached to every single thought that comes up for you.
Oh, I love that. So where does therapy play a role in all of this? Because I feel like some of these beliefs, I mean, I don't know if it's therapy or what, but like some of them are so deep rooted. And I love having little exercises to do that's like, go through, do this, look at this, write this down. But in my personal life, you have a belief, you feel like you squash it, you get to a new level and it comes back. Right. So did you really squash it, or is it the whole like new level, new devil? How do you just do the work again? Like, how do you deal with those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people money mindset work is really never done, just because, if you're going to the next level all the time, things are going to come up. Maybe in the beginning, you had a fear of charging a certain price point. And now as you grow your business, you have a fear of paying a certain team member a certain wage, because ultimately it's all rooted in lack. People aren't going to buy, or I'm not going to be able to afford this, so on and so forth. So there's all these things that come up. And so I don't believe it's about squashing it, but I believe it's always about being curious and being that observer. And the bounce back time gets much quicker. Stuff that would have taken you down for a week or two, or even a year, maybe you didn't start your business, even though you had the idea, for a year or two, or you couldn't sign that high level client for months. But as you get used to doing this work, the bounce back is much quicker. So something that would have taken you a week to get over takes you 2 minutes, right? And you're on to the next thing. So for me, that's what success looks like. That's what growth and personal development looks like. It's not about being perfect. It's about having that quicker bounce back and not letting things take you down and stop you.
Yeah, I love the curiosity piece. I think that in itself just reframes the negativity that someone might feel about themselves if they acknowledge, like, oh, I'm feeling jealous, or I'm feeling, and that's not a nice, good girls don't feel jealous. We should be happy for what we have, right? Like those types of things. And so reframing it in that way of just having that curiosity around the emotion, I think is a really beautiful thing.
And I think to your point, therapy, just want to say about the therapy piece there, of course, that's beneficial as well. There's a lot of generational trauma around money, especially, if you have grandparents who experienced poverty or the war, the Great Depression, that lives in ourselves. That is a part of our DNA. So there is work that you can do around that. I'm not a trained therapist, but I have personally worked on my own family patterns and dynamics with a therapist, and that can definitely be really helpful.
Well, I think with, even it's 2022 and women are still paid significantly less than men. There's a lot of just bigger picture things that we're dealing with as a society. Like no matter how much money mindset work we do, there's still going to be limiting factors, right? Not everybody's an entrepreneur. And so going and just asking for the raise or asking for what you want is a big piece. That's why I want to open up this conversation, because even just talking about money in the first place can be really challenging for people to talk about how much they get paid or if they're paying themselves or what they think they're worth. I mean, it's like, religion, money, like all these things, they're just, don't bring it up. But we have to, if we want to break through those barriers that have been holding us back. I wanted to ask you, because you have done so much of this work, what are the questions that I'm not asking? What are the things that come up when people really go deep in this work? If they're serious, if they're like committing this as a lifelong goal is to do the work, what are the things that come up?
Yeah, this is such a great question. It's a perfect segue. So in terms of what you were saying a little bit earlier and coming back to that, I know that a lot of your clients, they're in sales conversations, and there's a lot that comes up around even talking about money with strangers or potential clients. And that was my story as well. There was a period of time where I had 54 no's in a row. So I got on 54 sales calls and everyone said no. And what I was doing at that time was what I wasn't doing is I wasn't willing to have the money conversation. And so I think that's really the biggest thing that shifted everything for me. It was recognizing it was actually my duty to talk about money. And so oftentimes we get on calls and we're like, well, I just met this person. I don't want to go into their finances. How can I, have an honest conversation about their bank account when we've literally just connected? But what I realized was that it was my duty to go deeper with them. So if they said they wanted to work with me, and yet 2 seconds later, they said, well, I don't have the money. Well, it was my duty to help them find the money and to have an honest conversation. And I think that's where a lot of people hold themselves back. They're like, oh, I can help you build a business, but we're not going to talk about finances. And that makes no sense. Even if it's the first conversation, start talking about the money.
Yeah. So in spa, oftentimes someone will come in for a consultation, right? So they come in, they're coming to you, they're showing that they're interested in the services that you're doing. It's not like you're cold calling people or anything, right? Like they are coming to you, they're saying, you're the expert. I want to fix X, Y, and Z. And you have to give them the treatment plan, the whole deal. What are the home care products that you need to do? What are the treatments that you need to do to get your skin to the level that you want it at? And what do you need to do to maintain that? That costs money. It costs money. And it's one of those things that, again, we have to allow them to invest in themselves to have that win, to have that growth. And so often, if someone is coming to us and they have the confidence they love how they look, they have given themselves that self-care, they're going to go ask for the promotion. They're going to go start the business. They're going to go speak at the event, whatever they're going to do. And what they spent with you at the spa is peanuts compared to the impact that that's going to make on their life. And so I don't think that we correlate those two things of what is the result. Like, yes, this is what this is going to cost them monetarily, but what are they going to get as a result of that?
Exactly. Yeah. That piece around worthiness and what it translates in terms of what it translates to when you invest in yourself. And I think a lot of us go into business thinking our clients don't have money. And there's this scarcity complex. And so what I trained myself to believe was that everyone has a rich grandma in their corner. And a rich grandma is just a metaphor for whatever you want it to be. But so often, like I said on my sales calls, I was buying into the fact that my clients didn't have the money, or so they said. But that actually wasn't true. They were spending money on tons of other things. They just weren't allowing themselves to have the experience or to invest in themselves, or in your case, to get the service. And so they were thinking I was either going to discount or do something to make it easier for them. But I realized that was not actually my job. My job was to run a successful business, be clear on my numbers, and to support them in shifting their mindset and knowing they were worthy of this and it's possible for them. And so when you go into and go through life with an abundant mindset, that spills into everything and people feel that from you. But if you're a business owner where you're rooted in lack and everything you do is about saving a buck or about scarcity, then your clients and your whole business feels that. And it's apparent in everything that you do. And your results are also reflective of that.
Yeah, I love that, because it is so often we'll see like, okay, how are we going to save? How are we going to save? How are we going to save? I'm going to cut this. It's like, if you spend that much money or energy, on how are we going to go deeper with our clients? How are we going to generate this extra revenue? You can only cut so much to be able to operate, but your growth is only limited by you, right? So oftentimes you're saying, hey, I just want, even if it's just an extra $1,000, right? And that can be your starting point. Where is that possible? Where is that going to come from? Can you ask all of your clients in the week to upgrade, to this, add the mask, add the LED, add whatever? There's your $1,000, right? Like if you get, and that's no extra time. It's simply asking the question, because we are always leaving money on the table. Always.
Totally. And the money's always there. That's the other core belief I wanted to mention is if you believe the money is always there for your desires, then you're going to be creative with it. Like you said, ask everyone to upgrade, offer some sort of additional package on top of what they're currently getting, send out an email blast, like whatever. There was somebody who said there's no problem that can't be solved by a sales email, right? So is there something you can send out, a mailer or whatever? And when you start to operate with that mindset that the money's always there, then your creative juices get flowing, because we all know we can't access that creativity when we're stressed. So when you change your money beliefs and believe in abundance and the money is always there and that your desires are truth, it opens up so many more opportunities and your business starts to flourish.
Love that. Okay, so I want everyone listening first to go and follow Emily. She's incredible. I love her Instagram. What's your Instagram?
Just my name, Emily Williams.
Emily Williams. We'll get that linked up below. Follow her and do the work, you guys. I want you guys to, for 30 days, no joke, 30 days, pay attention to everything that triggers you. Pay attention to feelings of jealousy, pay attention to your desires, and you don't have to tell anybody. Start out not telling anybody, write it down, but get clear on what you want. Start to understand what your blocks are. That is going to be the baby step in the direction to blast through these beliefs and mindset, you guys. The further I go in business, the more money that I make, the more that my company grows, the more that I realize it's all up here. It is so much about mindset and what is possible for you. And I know it's the same for you as well. So please go follow Emily, check her out. She's incredibly inspirational, a total expert when it comes to money, mindset, and so many other things. Do the work yourself. And obviously, keep the conversation going with us over in the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Or Emily, before we do that, any links or anything that you want to share?
Yeah, if you go to emilywilliams.com, we've actually launched a brand new money mindset training. It's about 40 minutes and it goes through all of this even more in depth. So you can check that out. It's totally free. And there's a massive workbook that walks you through the whole training as well and gives you more tangible tips.
Love it. All right, you guys, thanks so much. And we'll catch you on the next episode.